The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
I ain't tripping on the drums. I already know you want the vibes we on. You got the vision. East to west, it makes no difference. Follow us, we with it. I'm like, never keep your distance. Gotta keep high power. Either way, I'm living. Right? Come up at the beach, right? Turn up. Hey, baby, just push up on me. That's how you can get it. You can see I come from NASA. I like her from Apple. Either way, she can move her body. Either way, I can take it slow.
Good yawning this morning, and welcome back to Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, your station for fresh news, smart talk all day. Ah, boy, I am excited this morning. So let's start off the day correctly with some positive stuff. First of all, I'd like to send a shout out, a happy good morning to Officer Bethel and all of the officers at the Fox Hill Police Station. Let me tell you what a difference a little community intervention and police attention, what a difference it can make in somebody's life. And I'd like to thank Officer Bethel and his colleague yesterday for the sensitivity. I don't want to say gentleness because somebody can text me and say, man, policeman ain't supposed to be gentle. But I watched these officers treat a man in distress with the greatest care, with the greatest care. And it was somebody who you would just, if they didn't, you would say, well, I expect that, sort of. But they did their best, and I want to say thank you to them and all of the hardworking officers on the force trying to make a way with no way. Good morning to y'all. Also, I mean, basically, that's about it I kid. There's lots of positive news out there. Let me tell you all something I heard yesterday. I found out there's another winter mango tree in New Providence somewhere. And it's even better than a winter mango tree. Like, it bears 2 times a year. Now, I don't know where the tree is. Just knowing that the tree exists was a start. Like G.I. Joe said, knowing is half the battle. So if you know where your tree is, careful, because I'm looking for it now. That's always something positive, always something to smile about. Winter mangoes. Jujus are on the ground. It is juju time. I know we had some early jujus, some guys around here walking around with jujus the size of tennis balls, people. Them fancy juju. And if you had forgotten, juju is in the apple family, right? Like juju is like a hybrid apple. They make great applesauce. And if you're vegan, you're Rastafarian, you're Seventh-day Adventist, you have strict dietary needs or choices, you can use juju to replace apple, so you can make a juju sauce to replace the applesauce, to replace the egg in your pastry. All right. This morning, I'm going to be talking to the chairman of the JCNP, Dion Miller. Before we start the discussion, first I want to give you the numbers, and so you can call and join the conversation if you'd like to. You could text us on the Guardian Radio text line. That's 422-GR96. That's 422-4796. That's powered by BTC. Standard text rates apply. You can also call us at 323-6232, 325-4316, or 4259. Now, there's lots in the paper today. I just want to touch on a few things before we go forward. In The Guardian on the fold, there's a headline, Hannah Martin accuses Lloyd of hypocrisy. Now, yesterday, I told you all I saw that flyer, and when I saw Lloyd on it, I wondered, well, what should we prepare ourselves for? Well, I could have told Mr. Lloyd to take a day off yesterday if they had come to me, but they didn't come to me. That's not my business. Here's what I do want to say, though, to Mr. Pintard. The top of the Guardian fold, the headline is, Pintard, government must lead in COVID fight. I just got a couple of questions for Pintard. And the first is, dear Sir, Honorable Leader of the Opposition, if the government leads, will you and your party members follow? Right? That's the biggest question. If they lead, will you follow? Right? And sometimes following isn't what we think it is. So here's what I would like to suggest. It's something that I thought of yesterday. See, if I were you, I would have put Adrian White on that flyer for my press conference. And I would have engaged Adrian White and asked him to engage Rotary and all of the wonderful members and volunteers that assisted the state in their vaccine campaign and their vaccination processes. I would engage Mr. Adrian White and ask him if he can inspire or compel or cause Rotary members and volunteers to step up and assist the government in this effort once again. That's what I would have done. Because I don't think there is an answer to why approximately a couple thousand, 10,000, 15,000, that such a large number of students would not be actively engaged on the virtual learning platform and essentially falling through the cracks. I would have just forget I was in government at all for a moment. But anyway, that's an aside. Let's focus on the positive. The positive is that in your party, in your opposition, your bench, you have a number of talented people with resources that they can bring along with them. And I implore you to turn to Mr. White, engage Rotary organization, and get them on board. And not just in the vaccination rollout, but the government says that its focus is enabling Bahamians to follow protocols to keep themselves safe while attempting to sustain the momentum that has been gained so far in the economy. So I would ask Rotary to also consider assisting the government in implementing a number of campaigns and strategies, including mask distribution, PPE distribution, maintaining community constituency offices and community centers that exist, and the feeding, although the food program has devolved or has changed, to figure out how we're going to get that system up and running from a nonprofit civil society side. That's what I would be doing. Because the government is busy. A question I have to ask right now, in The Guardian, there's an article, Diggis warns that things could get worse. And he says, the article says, with 120 employees out of its system, Doctors Hospital CEO Dr. Charles Diggis said yesterday that the hospital has seen a disturbing increase in ill COVID patients in recent weeks and warned that things could get worse. Is that 120 employees out of the Doctors Hospital system? Or the entire country system? Because if that's 120 from them and 110 plus from public healthcare system, then the government has lots of things to focus on, and we need to call on civil society, Rotary, Chamber of Commerce and Employers Federation, the Bahamas Insurance Association, all of our professional associations and civil society organizations. We need to step up and come together and figure out how we're going to fill the gaps. Absolutely. I don't think it's that much of hard work, and I think we could do it. But right now, it's time to talk a little Junkanoo. I want to say good morning to my guest, Mr. Dion Miller, chairman of the JCNP. Good morning, Mr. Miller.
Good morning, Erin. Good morning, Bahamas.
How are you?
I am doing well.
Good. You still got that, in Trinidad, they call it tabanca. You got a fever, a love fever. You got that Junkanoo tabanca or what?
Man, it never left.
Ah, boy.
It never left.
Look here, I ain't rush scrap in like 5 or 6 years, and I still miss Junkanoo bad this year.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's rough for all of us out there.
Absolutely. Do y'all have a Junkanoo support group where people could go and sit and commiserate, and support each other and talk and share through some of the things y'all miss and are dealing with in the absence of Junkanoo?
Yes, we have several locations around the island, actually. Several, I'll say how they put it, several watering holes.
Okay.
Junkanoo watering holes.
Yeah.
that, the fellas kind of visit and congregate and talk old Junkanoo stories and, reminisce on the times and but it's really Erin at the present time, not only for Junkanoos, but for Bahamians alike. We can't really celebrate in the traditional ways and forms our culture that we all hold near and dear to our hearts.
Yeah. And, I imagine that it's frustrating on multiple levels. So imagine that you're a small group of Junkanoos or Junkanooers, I can ask you that question too, and you want to do something small, but when the people hear the drums in the distance, they're going to get in their car, they're going to put on their shoes, and they're going to walk and find them drums. So even to be responsible, even though you could do a small little thing, you got to be responsible and hold it down because of the crowd,
Absolutely, and I think that is perhaps the love for Junkanoo and the fact that they know whenever we get back to Junkanoo, wherever there's some sort of Junkanoo, the people will turn out, which I think is the greatest fear of the powers that be and allowing us to get back doing what we love to do.
Yeah, I mean it's a real consideration because the essence and the spirit of Junkanoo in my mind is rebellion, right? And so what you're gonna get when you sound them drums. And it's not to say it's a bad thing, Not to say that people just bad. It's just the spirit.
Yeah, it's a spirit. It's jubilation. It's letting out all of that stress, all the frustration that occurs on your day-to-day life, at your job, at home. Junkanoo just allows you to let your hair out and just, it's synonymous with our DNA. Mm-hmm. That goes all the way back to Africa. When you hear that drum beat, that boom, boom, it just transfixes you.
Absolutely. So one of the questions I want to ask is Junkanoo or Junkanooer? What is the correct term?
Well, the correct term, the late great Celinda Pillin termed it correctly, is that we are Junkanoo. Okay. So it's not Junkanooers, it's Junkanoo. We are all Junkanooers.
Okay.
So Junkanoo is the correct term.
Okay. Good. I don't want to corrupt it. See, like Junkanoo belongs to all of us, but then we also have a responsibility to get a sense of this culture, this spirit or this essence we walking into. So I feel like a Bahamian, like I tell you, I rush with a scrap group. Sometimes we don't register. We just rush on bay. And I feel like that is the essence of Junkanoo, But at the same time, I respect fellow Junkanoos enough to want to understand and ensure that I follow in the tradition.
Correct. And your form, that scrap group, that fun essence of Junkanoo is actually what Junkanoo is all about. Cutting loose, going out there and celebrating. What we have seen over the past 25, 30 years is the injection of the competitive side of Jonkanu, which dominates the culture and the celebration. But Jonkanu at its heart, essentially is a spirit. It stems from just what you stated, a rebellion from John Canoe and back in those days. And so that form of Jonkanu is what it traditionally and what it should be.
All right. So while I was thinking about what are we going to do with no Jonkanu parades without Bay, right? One of the questions that arose was, is there one body or group that governs Jonkanu? Because it seemed to be so difficult to make decisions among so many groups and people when nobody owns Jonkanu. But is there a body that governs the whole thing?
So I'll do my best to explain it to the Bahamian people. First and foremost, no particular body or no one owns Jonkanu. We all own Jonkanu because as Bahamians, we are Jonkanu. And so there is no one body or group that owns Jonkanu. Jonkanu is inside of all of us as Bahamians. But the organization of Jonkanu falls on a few different bodies.
Okay.
And in 2006, under the leadership of or the administration of the Right Honorable Perry Gladstone Christie, Jonkanus had reached a frustration level with the government of Bahamas and how the parades and Jonkanu was being managed. And Mr. Christie challenged the Jonkanu groups to get together, put the competitive side of Jonkanu aside and to form, and so we can manage our own affairs. And so in 2006, all of the groups came together and we formed and organized what's now called the Jonkanu Corporation of New Providence Limited. That body is tasked with managing all of the national Jonkanu parades here on island. So we have the Boxing Day parades and the New Year's Day parades. And so the JCNP for the past 10 plus years have been tasked with managing those parades. The government appoints every administration appoints a statutory board. That's the National Jonkanu Committee.
Right.
And that board is the official advisory body of the Jonkanu. Okay. So the NJC has responsibility for the junior Jonkanu parades and programs, as well as Jonkanu on the Out Islands, Grand Bahama, and the Family Islands. So essentially, the JCNP governs or mandates or administers the Jonkanu here on the capital island, the main island, New Providence, and the NJC takes more of the lead on the Out Islands and with the junior Jonkanu platform in particular.
Absolutely. And
so the JCNP is a combination of all Jonkanu groups here on New Providence. Every single Jonkanu group has equal shares. Something that a lot of persons do not understand is that the JCNP is a totally independent corporation and body. And I say that and I explain that we don't receive any funding from the government. So we in past 10 years have not received $1 from the government of Bahamas, and that's something I think that surprises a lot of Bahamians. We function off corporate Bahamas. We have a number of sponsors from BTC, Calic, Rubus. Recently, the Development Bank has come on board. The Ministry of Tourism has come on board. And so all of our operational expenses and etc., we have to raise funds for us to operate. We are not exempt from any regulations, means that we have to pay all of our taxes, we have to pay VAT, light bill, rent, all of it that other corporations are tasked with. We have to, of course, function for ourselves.
All right.
So I just want to let that know. But in terms of the ownership of Jonkanu, we are all Bahamians and we all own this thing and should take ownership in our culture in this thing called Jonkanu.
Absolutely. That's important to know if you want to get a sense of what happened with the virtual Jonkanu experience. That's one thing. But what can happen? Like what are the possibilities in terms of working with the JCNP? I didn't realize. Go on.
Yeah, so the JCNP is, like I said, we're a totally independent body.
Yeah.
We have an executive committee with different tasks that function year-round.
Yeah.
I think what people, another thing people don't appreciate is Jonkanu does not happen in a vacuum. So Jonkanu takes months and months of planning. Our traditional we start our traditional planning for those parades as early as March. And so it takes a lot. And so the JCMP, we're always looking for new partnerships, new ways to get different entities and different bodies involved in Junkanoo. And so it's as easy as getting in contact with the corporation. I can leave with you, Erin, all of our contacts, our details, for anyone to get in contact with us. And look, my ears are always wide open into the possibilities of what could happen and how we transform Junkanoo and incorporate new tidbits and new stuff into the product.
Right? Because look here, I'm sitting here right now thinking, right? We need a web shop product. I don't want to call it a ball, right? But imagine if we had the Shea Ball or the Sheffy Ball, the culture, healthcare, education, family island ball, right? Where you knew that the money generated
Correct.
from that was going directly to Junkanoo, and then to healthcare, to education, to family islands, so that the people who live on the family islands can better participate in Junkanoo. They don't have to worry about the other things, right? Like, I think we love Junkanoo enough to start putting our money where our mouth is and invest in mechanisms to ensure that we can always fund not just the parades, but the entire, like you say, the entire environment, the entire community, all the work that takes place to ensure that the parades can continue and the activities can continue.
Correct. And just to elaborate on that, Erin, I think Junkanoo, for us here in the Bahamas, Junkanoo incorporates every facet of our social economic being.
Mm-hmm.
Junkanoo has representation in every aspect of our society. Junkanoo have lawyers, we have doctors, we have musicians, we have the common man. If you look at just the leadership of this country, almost every single person that became the prime minister of this country has had some sort of connection to Junkanoo.
So you're saying Junkanoo is like a cabin in the woods?
I always tell these politicians when they come around, if you want to be the big boss, you got to come to Junkanoo. If you look at Mr. Pinland, if you look at Mr. Christie, Mr. Ingram, although he wasn't a quote-unquote Junkanoo, he made sure to put things in place in terms of resources for Junkanoo to develop. Mr. Christie, and of course, Mr. Minnis, and even our current Prime Minister, Mr. Davis, they're all Junkanoos. His sons are avid cultural enthusiasts. They're avid Junkanoos. And so to be a leader in this country, you certainly have to come to Junkanoo. And one of the things that we're working on now, Erin, during the last administration, we were very successful and able to attain 13.2 acres of crown land on the main Gladstone Road.
So we get the land. We good.
So we have the land. So we were successful in securing the land. So we have the 13.2 acres of crown land.
Right.
And one of the things that we're putting in place together now is how do we package that? We want to have a multi-purpose use of that property. Not just for Junkanoo and Junkanoo parades, but we are thinking the lines of gardens and tours and all sorts of stuff. So we really wanted to transform Junkanoo and that project in particularly into a revenue-based project. And so we're putting the final touches on that before we come to the public. One of the things that we were speaking about as of late is we would like to try and organize an IPO for that project, so Bahamians can invest in that project, invest in yourself, and reap and see the benefits of such a project. But it's exciting times for Junkanoo. It's been a difficult, very difficult 2 years in terms of Junkanoo. I think the only people over the past 2 years that are happy or some sort of happy is the spouses of Junkanoos. Because we are as Junkanoos, we have more time home, and that's a good and a bad thing, particularly during the holiday times. But it's really rough. I think this Boxing Day pass, it hit me very hard. I was having a conversation on Boxing Day with Percy Willa Francis, and we was just speaking. But boy, right now, 4:00, the Sharks would have been buzzing. Everyone would be preparing to head down to Bay Street to get this thing going on. The weather is beautiful, and etc. And it's sad, but I do see the light at the end of the tunnel. But what it will come down to, Erin, is political will. The JCNP has submitted several plans to cabinet for approval. I think we have had maybe about between 5 to 8 different plans rejected.
Okay.
And we understand that, they would, public safety is paramount, and this pandemic and all of that was the main reason, one of the main reasons why we were rejected. But we hope this year that we'll be able to get back to doing what we love to do.
Absolutely. So listen, I've got this text. I got a caller on the line. The text says, based on current situation, can you confidently say that there will be a major Junkanoo parade this year? And will they find an alternative place for the Rawson Square Christmas lighting? Say maybe Pompey Square?
Yes. So according to the plan so far, that there is plans to have in-person Junkanoo parades. I say that was the go ahead that we received last year as well, and you see what happened. And so I think the plan is tentative, mindful of the COVID situation in the country. Once we are doing what we're doing in regards to the vaccination and containing the spread of COVID, there should be no reason why there can't be parades. My goal this year is to get us back to some live form of Junkanoo, and I've submitted plans to the powers that be to do that. As a corporation, we are willing to reduce the seating capacity on Bay Street to 50% to allow our fans and our spectators to safely socially distance between themselves on the bleachers. We are willing to incorporate fully vaccinated sections of the bleachers so that persons can feel more safe in who's around them in their environment.
Right.
So we have submitted several different initiatives that we are willing to take to the powers that be, the government, and we are hopeful that by sometime by spring that they would make a determination and stick to that determination and allow us to get back to doing what we love to do. So I'm hopeful that we can be able to get back to some sort of live in-person Junkanoo during the holiday season.
All right. So here's a question for you. I see in the Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture's press release, both the one a month ago roughly and the one this weekend, they reference the Family Island Junkanoo season, right? Now, I know JCNP doesn't govern the Family Island Junkanoo season, or do you? You don't, right?
No, we don't
Okay.
have any involvement in that.
Well, I'm mad because why didn't you guys incorporate the competitions that are intended for this year's Family Island season in the New Providence Spirit of Junkanoo virtual experience? Why we didn't have a cowbella competition, a free dancer competition, a costume competition, a drummer competition, and a small music line competition, right? And can the JCNP and the BNJC, the National Junkanoo Committee, are y'all willing to organize and sponsor national competitions like those and like a yearly song and a music composition competition?
Excellent questions. So let me break it down. So the JCMP does not advise the government on any national outside of New Providence Junkanoo. And so that would be the role of the NJC, the National Junkanoo Committee.
Okay.
In terms of those competitions, we had several options. And just to give the Bahamian public a innuendo or a breakdown on how these things occur. So last year, early July, a decision was made by government and the JCMP after consultation with our corporate sponsors that there won't be any major parades this year. And beginning in August, all three of those bodies, which is our corporate sponsors, the government of Bahamas through the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture and the JCMP, we got around the virtual table and we started to plan several different aspects or several different plans that could possibly happen. And as I said earlier, all of those possibilities were rejected due primarily to COVID and financing. We had intended as a body to do those individual competitions as well as a roundabout competition. But unfortunately, those plans were scrapped due to funding. And so I think it's well documented. The budget for John Canoe was slashed, I think, on 2 different occasions. And so the funding for such ventures just was not there.
All right.
And so the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture had the idea of producing a virtual John Canoe film presentation. And so they engaged JCNP and their groups and presented to us as a body their whole vision for this film premiere. And so the planning began for that.
Yeah.
The planning, there wasn't any extensive planning for the virtual the virtual John Canoe film.
Yeah.
I think we started in late November, early December on the planning. And so the groups literally only had about 2 to 3 weeks to prepare for that venture.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I was going to say that to me, it felt like the people who produced the film weren't deeply rooted or didn't really understand both the John Canoe culture, like the culture of the performers, and the culture of the spectators. And I imagine that if the performers had more time to prepare, that they would have choreographed a presentation that would be easier to film and capture the spirit of John Canoe. But I got a text here for you. It says, I love John Canoe. Absolutely love it. But the last criteria we need right now for leadership of this country is someone who could shake cowbells or beat drum. We need strategic, ethical, hardworking thinkers. This is serious. If they could do the roller, that's a bonus, not a prerequisite. Now, I want to respond to that texter by saying that the skills required to organize a parade are the skills required to manage a government. And the skills required to organize, to cause, to discipline themselves, to inspire people to want to commit to a project that's bigger than them, bigger than their own group even, that these are all of the skill sets, hard and soft, that you want for leadership.
Yeah, and just to add to that comment, Erin, that is part of the stigma that we want to change in John Canoe. That John Canoes are just,
Your boy
tell
them.
us that, go there, your boy them. Look at me. I am a young man of 37 years old, married, father. I organize and I operate 2 of the biggest fast food chains on this island. Very successful, highly educated, but I'm a John Canoe. And so to say that John Canoes and leadership in this country is not necessary, I think it's a slap in the face of Damien's, because John Canoe is our culture. John Canoe is we're all John Canoes. It's in our society.
Yeah.
It's everything that we do. So I want people to respect John Canoes. As I stated, we have successful doctors, lawyers, politicians, pastors. Every single walk in this life is represented in John Canoe. LGBT.
Yeah.
Every single thing is in John Canoe. When you look at a John Canoe group, that's a microcosm of your society, of your country.
Yeah.
And so I don't want you to look down on John Canoe.
Not at all.
More than capable.
Not at
We are
all.
more than capable people.
Even if you ain't the Spirit, the greatest scrap group in the history of John Canoe, white people in the whole world, you are still special. You still good.
Amen.
You don't.
Amen.
And I want to let people know that you got to believe in yourself that much every day and enable others to do the same. But listen, I got the board is lit up. Let's get to some calls. Is that okay?
That's for sure. Fine.
All right. Let's get to that first call. Caller, you're on the clock.
Consolidated this dark universe.
Good morning. Blessings.
Bremen.
Good thing. What I want to say is, right,
Yes, sir.
you must remember, speaking of, especially to Miller, that the common man were the persons that started John Canoe. Okay?
Yeah.
That was established John Canoe.
Okay.
Other people got in there, they went to school and they came back. We opened the door for them as friends, right?
Uh-huh.
And they got diplomatic and pushed some of us out.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah. I hear you, Brayman. Listen, thank you. Thank you for that. Now, Mr. Miller, there's a lot of politics in there. And while you know I love to talk politics, I didn't necessarily want to raise that spirit, that energy, because there's still a lot of questions to ask the government about this virtual Junkanoo, right? And
Rightly so.
and you know what Brayman is touching on, I find that very interesting because that's the way that sort of things work here. So let's sort of put that aside. Thank you for that point, Brayman. Here's a question I have for you. I have a text here that says, can you tell us the name of the company that filmed the production? And if you can't, I understand, because I don't understand why the minister wouldn't tell us the name of the company. But is it possible, and is there a reason why we're not being told the name of the company?
And so let me answer as best as I can.
Yeah.
I am aware of the name of the company that were hired to produce and edit and record the virtual Junkanoo film, but I am not at my capacity at level to release that information.
Yeah.
That is government. The government is sharing. The government hired a private contractor to do that job, and so the government should release or indicate that information.
Yeah, I've heard names, but I have no verification whatsoever. So I can't say what I've heard on air. And we can leave it right there for the moment. Another text here says, we can't read that one. It says, are you a Saxon or a Valley? And for me, the question is, what do y'all do within the JCNP? How do y'all maintain, I don't want to say integrity because that's not what I mean, but the trust, right? That, okay, this boy is the chairman this year and you know he's a Saxon. That's why the Valley don't win when he's the chairman, right? How do y'all maintain the trust at that level, considering that y'all are all groups competing against each other? And then the big question is this: who caused the Valley Boys to quit Bay Street? Who do the Valley Boys something, and what did they do them, and how are we going to get them back? Because the whole world has not been the same since the Valley Boys say they ain't coming to Bay Street.
Since the Valley Boys resigned.
Yes, or they resigned.
Yeah. So to answer that question,
Yeah.
the JCMP is made up of all different Junkanoo groups here in New Providence.
Yeah.
And we have a democratic process, and so we have elections every three years, and the body decides who leads the organization. And so I was elected by the majority of Junkanoo groups,
right?
Inclusive of the Valley Boys and all of those other groups. I am, and I'll always be, a Saxon superstar. I was a Saxon from inception, from birth. Never left, never threatened to leave, or never went anywhere. And so I when I became the chairman of the JCNP, I took an official step back from active Junkanoo or active involvement
in the
group.
Okay.
Yeah. I was one of the young leaders of my time of election in the group, and so I've stepped back. And so for the past 2.5, 3 years, I haven't had any involvement in the group.
I got you.
Coming into
because I cheating for my group. I cheating for my group.
Coming into it, the trust thing is a very difficult thing and to respond, because in Junkanoo there was so much distrust amongst ourselves because our focus have been so dominated by the competitive aspect of Junkanoo that is very difficult for people to see and to have that trust.
Mm-hmm.
For examples, what a lot of Junkanoos and people understand is that the JCMP operates at a very transparent manner. Mm-hmm. All groups have access to the judging pool. So the JCMP puts out a public tender, and anyone who wants to be a judge, they can judge. every group was given an opportunity to see who those judges are. If they have an issue with a judge, they can remove that judge. They can remove actually up to 5 judges who after doing vetting and investigations, if they don't feel comfortable with that judge. On the night in question, when the parades are judged, every group has the opportunity to have a representative in what we call the scoring room. And so the groups were able to see those scores and who judge those parades come in. And so the chairman of the JCMP or the executive boards has no role on to who wins or how it goes, etc. In regards to the Valley Boys, it's well documented what occurred. The JCMP has a process after the judging and the scores are called. It's called the IRC, which is a review process where groups can lodge different complaints or protests based on what happened on the parade that they feel was not in their favor.
Absolutely.
So, after that process, the IRC made some determinations, some rulings, which I agree was not correct or not some of the best decisions that made, but that eventually it affected the parade. The problem lies that we all agreed as a corporation and as groups that the IRC would be our last resort. So that's our final appellate board. And after the IRC, there's nothing, no other body for us to appeal to. And so, for example, the IRC made a ruling, although the ruling may have been poor, based on our constitutional rules, we have no other board that we can appeal. And so the issue with the Valley Boys is not that the JCNP or the executives done something. It's just that it grew out of frustration from that particular process.
I get you.
And so the Valley Boys resigned. I could share with the public that that conversations between the Valley Boys and the JCMP has commenced.
Okay.
Nothing is official yet, but I think we're trending in a good place. One thing that COVID and the pandemic, I think, has brought about is the spirit of unity. And we all just want to get back to doing what we love to do. And I think we are all at a place now where we're ready to move past all of those issues and come together united to move and transform Junkanoo. And so whilst nothing is official yet, I see the situation with the Valley Boys progressing very well. And you know, it's safe to say, and everyone who could hear my voice, when we get back to Bay Street, God willing this year, all of our groups will be on Bay Street.
Absolutely. Boy, Dion, I had 2 calls there and they dropped. But I thank you for that explanation. You're not making fun of the Valley, but it's great to understand the processes that you guys use to work through these issues. Those calls are back, Dion. I think we're going to get one of them in a second. Let's go to this caller right now. Caller, you're on the clock.
Hey, morning. How you doing?
Good morning. I'm good, thank you.
And morning to the chairman.
Morning.
Well, I could take a little bit of the pressure off the chairman, man. The chairman, even though I'm a Valley boy, he's faster than I know more in life. But with the question which you asked him in terms of what happened to the Valley boys, you might as well tell the truth, call a spade a spade. I think that was more of a personal thing up when the chairman of the Valley boys pulled the group because he definitely didn't consult with me and a lot of the wider members prior to making that decision. And second of all, that ain't the first time he do that. You understand me? So I ain't gonna put much more of the Valley Boys dirty laundry out there, but that's a situation we gonna have to address when we get back in full swing.
Absolutely.
My concern though is to the chairman is that the Junkanoo, virtual Junkanoo that we had, who made the decision in terms of where that was supposed to be held, who agreed to that? Because I figure that could have been held on Bay Street, 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the night, each group, 100 members saying that Nassau is the hub of Junkanoo, and not 35 like we going to some Smithsonian or something. And each group could have rushed down past Rossington Square. The acoustics would have been better and all of that.
Yeah,
who made that decision?
What would have been better, one of the questions I asked was, were all of the groups filmed at night, at the same time of the night? And where were they filmed? Well, I eventually saw some footage that was drone footage, And I realized that their capacity for drone footage was limited because of the location that they chose. But if,
Yeah.
like you say, if they'd chosen downtown, they could have closed off downtown to
Yeah.
vehicular and pedestrian traffic,
And get
used
the
the
same effect.
drones.
Minus the people. My last question to the chairman, and I want to consider this serious. Do you feel that there is a threat to John Canoe on Bay Street? I'll hang up and listen.
Okay.
So, so first, answer the first part of the question. So after the ministry would have presented their plans to us, our initial response to the ministry was that John Canoe should be on Bay Street. Of course, that was the initial plan. The plan was they communicated to us that the plan was Bay Street. Of course, they had to submit those plans to cabinet. And after it went to cabinet, the venue would have changed. And one of the feedback they came back to us is that they would have if Bay Street was selected, they would have had to put up all sort of fencing and this and that to secure, because they wanted a bubble environment, and they would have to block off all those corridors, put up fencing, get police, because they did not want the public to be involved to create a super spreader event.
Right.
And based on their funding that was available, they decided to move from that. And so in terms of production, of course, the ministry was responsible for the production, hiring the production and all of that stuff, as well as the venue and all of that. And so the JCMP and the groups, our job was to adhere to the agreed COVID protocols and to the agreed numbers. So I think the government allowed 65 persons for group to participate. So our job was to make sure that was difficult for John Canoe groups to decide on who participated in that, which was unfair to a lot of the groups. But our job was to just adhere to the rules, to ensure that all persons had their COVID tests and all of that, and to show up and perform. The government did give the individual groups a small stipend for their participation. And so our role was just to make sure that everyone showed up. They looked to agreement with the government and they executed. And on the government aspects of it, the government secured the venue, and the venue changed several times. I can share with the public. Their job was secure the venue, to secure the production, and ensure that the area would be a bubble and there was police presence and all of that.
I got you.
In terms of the removement of John Canoe off Bay Street, I think that there's been, for the past 30 plus years, efforts to remove John Canoe from Bay Street. And it's come from all forms. Of course, the Bay Street merchants, they see us as an interference during their busy sales holiday season. And then you have some John Canoers that feel that, truthfully or being transparent, that the arena is too small now, and we have perhaps outgrown it. I can say, and from my leadership and for myself, that for me, John Canoe is Bay Street. And under my leadership, John Canoe will never move from Bay Street. And I've made that clear with the former administration, and that's one of the things I made clear with the current administration when they came in. I know I'm curious, and I see all sort of development going on in Bay Street and all sorts of plan. And so one of my job or my tasks is to ensure that whatever plans they got going, we're progressive. We want Bay Street to be beautiful and be modernized. But one thing is for sure, on Boxing Day and on New Year's Day, whatever happens, John Canoe will be there. Even when we develop our own museum and landscape on Gladstone Road, those parades will not be moving.
Well, look here, I say, cheapest you try take Bay Street out of the Bahamas before you take John Canoe off of Bay, right? I think it's a cultural issue. And it's an issue about ownership, about who gets to participate and in which form. I don't like the idea that John Canoe, for some reason, could be closed off to some people because they can't afford to get into the venue, or they can't afford to get to the venue, right? I think then we got to throw the whole John Canoe away if that's the direction that we're going in. I don't like that at all. But guess what I just thought? Let them keep Bay Street, Mr. Miller. We take it to Robinson Road. We take it to the people.
Absolutely.
The road doesn't get built out. We got sidewalk,
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
and two-story building for rooftop.
Yeah.
If the people, you know, if those that own Bay, if those who think they own Bay think they own everything in this country, we'll take Bay and Junkanoo and take it all to Robinson Road. I mean, but that's just me talking. I ain't even a member of the committee. Listen, I got one more call and I got a couple of texts for you. Caller, you on the clock.
That's great. How you doing?
I'm good, thank you, Sparky.
Not well today. But anyway, based on what you just said, that's what I was calling in to say.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when we organized, I would say me, Pass Eddie, and Ronald Sims, the first Independence Rush. That was really organized in the event that what we was attempting to do was not move Bay Street, but turn Junkanoo into a rail parade instead of going around these 2 and 3 blocks, crowding up on Shirley Street, crowding up on Frederick Street, Elizabeth Avenue, and so forth, and jamming everybody where you're on certain parts where they reach the guys just walking around or they funking and they stomping, was that it would be a parade. We left Malcolm Park. What we would do would come down to Malcolm Park, then we would stop and raise the flag at 6 o'clock when the sun rises in Rawson Square with the policeman and everything giving a tribute. From there, we will march to Arawak, to Western Esplanade. When we reach there, all the major groups or whoever involved will have their own, what we call it, you know, the little stores and so forth. Mm-hmm. When we reach there, then everybody be selling what they want to sell to make money to get back for their groups and so forth. T-shirts, chicken sauce, conch sauce, whatever it is, your breakfast and stuff like that. The whole day will be an event, not people sitting in bleachers and so forth.
Thank you, Sparky.
That's what we intended to do.
Man, Sparky, so I need you to write that down, man. I need you to get as much documentation from the time as well.
Yeah, Sparky, Michael Foster, who I'm sure you as well. Just the other day, he and I was speaking. He was telling me about that whole concept and that whole process. Very exciting.
Awesome. So look here, I got a text here that says, where is the objectivity in journalism? When contractors did a good job, we knew who did it, like the Christmas lights. So why the save face for this? We just want to know who do it. First of all, okay, y'all enjoyed the Christmas lights. It's very European expression. I didn't enjoy it in the absence of Junkanoo. It couldn't fill the place of Junkanoo for me in particular. But as a pretend journalist, because that's all I do, and I pretend into journalists, I don't know who got the contract. I haven't seen the documents myself. And the way that my wallet and personal professional indemnity insurance is set up, I can't talk about things I don't know about.
No, absolutely.
I personally don't know. And so I can't share, that information because it's not verified to me.
Correct.
Another text said, I didn't mean to imply that people who participate in Junkanoo can't be leaders. I said just because you put on a costume, it doesn't mean you're automatically a leader. My former principal, Mrs. Nash Ferguson, participates, and I know she knows more words than the dictionary. She's a leader. But you also have many people in there who dance and perform who are not leaders. There are well-defined characteristics for leadership. Let's list those, not Junkanoo. But I think what it is, if I could, Mr. Miller, is that the Junkanoo creates the environment in which leaders either rise to the top naturally or can be easily identified by community stakeholders. And so it's not that every Junkanoo could just jump up and be a leader, but if we sustain Junkanoo, if we cherish and commit to growing the culture will be a space where we can continue to grow good leaders, easily identify them, and propel them to the forefront.
Absolutely, Erin. You hit the nail on the head.
Thank you. All right, so another text here says to ask you, what is the consummate Junkanoo instrument? Is it the drum? Is it the cowbell? Is it the horn. What is the Junkanoo instrument?
The goatskin drum.
Right.
And before they use metal containers, they use wooden barrels. But it all revolves around that beat, that African heartbeat, that boom boom. And so the goatskin drum is the I would call the marquee instrument of Junkanoo.
I got you. I have a text here that says we will have to take Junkanoo to Fox Hill because now that them Robinson Road people have sidewalk, they're a bit antisocial and don't want you park up on their sidewalk. So maybe we can't go there. What y'all think y'all could do when y'all going? Y'all better put respect on their name when you go into Fox Hill too, though.
Fox Hill get sidewalk too, you know.
Yes, that's what I mean. They may not use it, but that ain't the point. The point is they have it in case of emergency.
Absolutely.
We gotta end the show. What I want to ask you is this as we end the show. I'm all out of time. Where can we find Junkanoo music? Is there an archive online in an office somewhere where as a student, a DJ, I could go and I could find a catalog of 2019 performances and with the musical selections isolated? I know Roots have CDs. Sting them have singles they release on CD. When will Junkanoos begin to archive their music?
I think that process has begun. Every group more or less produce CDs every season. The Mighty Pencil, a very popular DJ, he has lends a huge part in that revolutionized that. Every year he goes and he makes sure documents and records all of the different music from that particular Junkanoo season. So you can contact the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Culture. You can reach out to the individual groups or the JCNP to get those music and those videos and those films.
Absolutely. Mr. Miller, thank you so much for joining me. Listen, I wanted to beat up on the Minister of Youth, Sports and Culture about this event, but he went and apologized for the whole thing off the bat. It's like he take the wind right out my sail, man.
Yeah.
And so we push forward with positivity.
And I agree. Because I spoke to the ministry on Sunday after the debacle, and the minister was very, very, very embarrassed and very upset. Yeah. And we agreed to take that down immediately. And so they had good intentions, and for whatever reason, the productions were not just up to task.
I got you. Listen, thank you so much for joining me today. As I close off the show, I just got to give a small note about juju to some of my listeners who sent in texts. If you're eating the juju when it's brown, that means the juju is overripe or rotten. Because jujus are like apples, most jujus you encounter are going to be sour. So they get sweet as they ferment in the rotting process. So we call them juju because we eating dead fruit. Juju is a Caribbean word for ghost or duppy or dead thing. Eat your jujus when they are green turning yellow. That's when they are the peak of ripeness. If you don't have a sweet juju tree, remember, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. At Bahamian times, a juju a day keep the doctor away. You guys have a great day. Thank you for joining me. Thank you, Mr. Miller and the JCNP for lending us to him today. Levon Miller and Unleash is up next. Have a great day and stay tuned to Guardian Radio 96.9 FM.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.